You're tuned in to the MtG Cable cast, where they cover Magic, the Gathering Finance. All right? You don't know about it? You're tuned in right now and get ready to learn some shit. Buckle your seatbelts and light a blunt and get ready for the MtG Cable cast. Starring Reptar and Thirsty, them onion head motherfuckers.
Alrighty, guys, welcome to the newest episode of the Cabal Cast. And this week, we're giving you a little bit more of that LGS flavor. Basically, we took a look at organized play last week. Now we're taking a look at just some other games that my store, other stores, obviously are involved in. Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon that have been there forever, as well as some of the new up-and-comers like One Piece, Star Wars Unlimited, Lorcana, or Dragon Ball Fusion. Just to give a look of why stores get into those, why we decide to pick up extra verticals, and what those extra verticals can mean to us. So with that, let's get it started. So
I wanted to start it off with Yu-Gi-Oh! Probably, aside from Pokemon, one of the other longest-running TCG competitors to Magic. I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a better OP system than Pokemon, though the fanfare around Pokemon definitely seems to supersede Yu-Gi. But the competitive level seems like if there's going to be an immediate let's say, I don't want to use the word competitor again, it seems redundant, an immediate challenger, it would have always been Yu-Gi-Oh! So what does the Yu-Gi-Oh! Scene look like for you guys?
So one of the really unique things about Yu-Gi-Oh! Compared to Magic is people actually want sealed. But as soon as they satisfy what they want, they don't want any at all anymore. So ordering Yu-Gi-Oh! Is kind of strange. Okay. You'll have a bunch of people that'll come in for the first week and they'll get 1 boxes to a case regularly. It's nice because the boxes are usually like $60 to $70.
Yeah, so they're nice and cheap.
Yeah.
Are they 36 packs per box?
24.
24. Okay.
Yeah, 24.
And when you say sealed, I want to specify here, you mean actual like set releases, not tins, right?
Correct. Yes, actual set releases. The other nice thing that's kind of appealing about Yu-Gi-Oh! For an LGS is they understand their customer demographics and have boiled it down to a science. You mentioned the tins. So when a set comes out, it's just available as effectively a box of boosters. All the hot cards are in there. They're worth a ton of money. It takes a lot of time to get what you want and get it in your deck. A few months later, they release it in a tin and they reprint all of those good cards from that set in a tin and its pre-made contents. And that is when the second wave of people come in, who maybe might not be as dedicated. They're a little bit more casual, but they still like the game and want to play the good cards.
Yeah.
And then a few months later, it's released in a structure deck. And you can literally, in some cases, buy the structure deck and it's a tier 1 deck ready to go at a tournament. And this is kind of nice for an LGS because it's a reliable source of income, assuming you can order your quantities correctly. Because there have been plenty of stores I've talked to where they're stuck with like 1,000 boxes of some Yu-Gi-Oh! Set that just, well, we thought it was going to do better than it did. And now we can't even sell it for $20. The other nice thing about it is they have what are called lost art cards. When you buy a box, you basically get an art that was banned somewhere in the world on a card. Strange, but unique nevertheless.
Yeah.
And the other thing that Konami does, and this is probably the very best thing they do for an LGS, is they have the official tournament store pack gimmick. And what they do in their OTS packs is what they're called. I think it's 2 months, every month or 2 months, they'll send out a new OTS pack. And basically, that has promotional versions of some of the most powerful cards in the meta right there. New arts, different text, whatever. You are supposed to give those out for free at your events.
Got it. So it's kind of like the F&M promo packs, but properly curated.
Exactly. And they don't charge you for them. You just get them for free.
Yep.
And the one rule is, if you want to give these away, you cannot buy back the cards for 3 months.
That's an interesting caveat.
It's strange, yeah, but it's a way for them to get it out on the secondary market, and you can still sell them on TCG Player. You just can't, as a store, buy them back. Now, what's great about this is I, as an LGS, can literally just say, hey, $5, everybody gets an OTS pack. Done. People will show up in droves for that because it's 3 promo cards of some of the better cards in the format right now. So they absolutely understand that I may get a $100 card from this for $5, and I am totally fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it really reliable as income and a way to host for an LGS. And obviously you can throw in extra prizes and everything, but you don't have to be as generous with them to get people out because of this promotional product that Konami invites you as a store to have.
Yeah.
And it's literally just, you have to adhere to the Konami tournament rules, which does have an official odor policy, which has literally been the best thing ever.
That's pretty neat. Like, there was a lot of bits and pieces that kind of spark memories of vending anime events where we would overstock Yu-Gi sealed because we could guarantee move it, especially if it was the newest set at anime cons. For those that don't know, Yu-Gi boxes are really small, so they're actually very convenient in regards to bag space. They take up nothing. They're very easy to just, kind of cash and carry. You just walk around, put it in your purse or backpack, whatever. And they are super liquid at events like that compared even to Pokemon. We've had a lot of problems. Pokemon sealed moves, but it's oftentimes a lot of sealed packs, very rarely sealed boxes. Or in the cases where you're going to move Pokemon sealed, the set is so white hot that you can't actually logistically afford to sell them sealed because you can
pack out for 2x.
Well, not even that. You will lose people's business at your booth if you don't have a couple loose packs for them to buy. That is the gateway to buying singles. They'll ask about the sealed, and if you don't have it, right? And so sometimes you have to limit. Magic rarely moved like that, and who brings Magic sealed to a Magic Fest or whatever anymore, or even GPs back in the day if you weren't what were they? Professional, if you weren't Pez. They were the only ones with this stuff. And then that promo pack caveat, like, that's very Konami. If you know Konami's limitations for vendors and LGSs and the bandings they like to put on card prices that can be on the floor of an event, like we've talked about in the past, then that is a very Konami thing to do. It's also a very Konami thing to do for them to shut your ass down because they found out that you were buying this stuff back in that window. Like, Konami is ruthless like this. And so overall, it everything that you said, like, espouses the ideals that they've had for so long. And I don't want to say, like, that helps keep a lot of that keeps the tournament scene moving, but, like, Pokemon followed suit with the tins. Magic had to play catch up, and they've tried various things. There was, like, the holiday bundles, which is still a bunch of crap. They, in Khan's era, put out a Selesnya X deck. I can't remember what it was, that had, like, 2 Windswept Heats in it. To try and get people up to stuff. The Pioneer decks that they've released twice, kind of like the idea of the structure decks, but they're not just, like, pushing the envelope. They don't want people to actually be able to buy a singular product and play their game competitively. They want them to buy a singular product and then live the dream, like the 1994 dream of opening everything they need in the booster box they buy still. So it is this really weird barrier that Konami has just said, F it. The barrier is going to be time. That's it.
Time.
A couple months out, anybody who wants to jam can just jam. Honestly, like, when I've thought about pivoting to Yu-Gi-Oh, I was just like, all right, I got to wait for the set, wait for the tin, and then wait for the structure deck. And the structure deck point in time, I can just buy a bunch of them. I'll have everything I'll need to play effectively at that point in time. And then that's it. I don't have to worry about the secondary market or sealed to try and get what I need. Konami makes it very easy to get into the game, and it kind of that's why the tournament scene can be really vibrant.
It is.
Yeah. I know a lot of places do like Yu-Gi-Oh! A lot of places don't. They have their reasons, so it's nice to see stores that do end up supporting it. I think oftentimes a lot of it comes down to logistics for events, and if there aren't large events in the area, it's very hard to have an OP locally. So I was actually kind of surprised when you came back and you said you had Yu-Gi, because I didn't know what the scene was going to be like out there. One Piece is next up on the list, and we've talked about this a lot recently.
The thing that makes One Piece unique, and this is true of a couple of the other games we'll talk about, is the collectability of it. It's the IP that is one of the most well-loved in the world. It came out, Netflix show came out, it got more people into the game, more people started watching the anime, more people got into it. Organized play, we covered last episode or within the last couple, so watch back there for that. The nice thing about this is that, and this is something that, so as I was looking through these games, I was looking at sales data. And one of the interesting things about One Piece is it accounts for 35% of our sales.
Whoa.
The average ticket is $32.
And that ticket is mixed, sealed,
Singles.
Singles. Oh, okay.
With an average card count of 6.
Okay, that is wow. Okay.
Like, that's insane as an LGS. Because to have that kind of liquidity for cards at that price point is exactly where you need to be for things to work. By contrast, Yu-Gi-Oh! Accounts for 11% of our revenue. Average ticket is $7 with a 4-piece order on average. So size-wise about the same, but the value's not as there.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about margins being razor thin at an LGS level, and that's why One Piece has kind of come into... I mean, if any of you owned an LGS pre-COVID, it feels like Magic pre-COVID, where your average card that you're selling out of your case, out of your binders, out of your bulk is like a $5 bill every single time, pretty consistently. And it also has, as I touched on, having the collectability behind the IP also drives foot traffic, because we now have regulars that come in and rip One Piece that never engaged with gaming at all and don't care about gaming. They are literally just buying it to collect the cards that they want. And it's something that an LGS doesn't typically get, because usually your only incidental foot traffic is mom and dad dropping someone off for a tournament. But this lets you spread your customer base a little bit more, and the broader your customer base is, the more safe you can be with your order quantity, which we touched on in Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yep.
So it's really turning into kind of like, outside of Pokemon, the safest play by far for an LGS. And I think that one of the nice things is that it came out at a time where a lot of people were getting kind of disenfranchised with Yu-Gi-Oh! Some people were getting disenfranchised with Magic. And some people were getting disenfranchised with Pokemon, because at the time the Pokemon meta had been dog shit for about a year and a half.
Yep.
So it really benefited from that and got a lot of those people in. And that's one of the nice things about it, is it's a very community-driven card game with a lot of buy-in there, and it has good margins at an LGS level, which is always good.
Okay. One of the things I've been curious about, and this is mainly because my LGS is not a one-piece store, are you guys receiving any kind of physical marketing assets? So, like, Magic's done cardboard standees in the past, window vinyls. Other games have done like wall scrolls and things like that.
Yeah.
Are you getting one-piece stuff?
Yeah, they send out wall scrolls, or like window vinyls rather, and they also do. I do want to mention this as well. They also have prize packs that they send to an LGS, and basically anytime you run the event, everyone gets a participant pack, and it's a promo card. There's only 5 in the pack, and it's one of those 5. But then if you win, you get a winner pack, and then it's stamped with winner, which, as we touched on in the previous episodes, is kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Okay.
So it really, similar to Yu-Gi-Oh!, kind of incentivizes you to play at a local level as much as possible, because you can actually get a return on that without any extra, like, throw-ins from the store, although we still do, obviously.
Yeah. What does sealed movement for that game look like?
Man, I think the first set just hit $700 a box, and it's still selling.
Did they do first editions?
Nope. They just don't exist anymore. So when you can find them, they're a lot.
Okay.
There's basically, it kind of follows similar to Magic, where, the new set comes out and all of a sudden nobody cares. For example, the next set, which is not out yet, is pre-ordering for $184.86.
Okay.
The past couple sets have been around $225 on release.
How many boosters in a box?
I believe it is 24.
Whoa. Okay. Jeez.
And the best part is the cost. $60.
Damn. It's like
That's it.
Yeah, it's like $8 a pack.
Yeah.
At that price point, that's like buying a master set for every release. Holy
and it sells. We had, I think, about 700 boxes that we put up for pre-order, and it lasted 5 minutes.
Yeah. Wow.
It's absurd how... I'd liken it to this. A lot of the old-headed Magic players play Legacy because we just were established. We played back then. We can buy the cards if we don't. have them because we have disposable income. Those are the kind of people that have moved over to One Piece.
That's kind of what I'm seeing.
It's a lot of like established in life,
Yeah.
fairly set up, like, all right, I'm doing this because I like it and it's fun.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, it's an IP that's been around for effectively forever. It is beloved. It just keeps trucking along. Like the only thing that would topple this is if they made a good Avatar: The Last Airbender game. Like
exactly,
in all honesty. Though the last question I have about One Piece is, I know there are foils in the game. Are they random chance foils? Like any card can be a foil, or do they use like the WotC Pokemon style thing where it's like these cards are foils, these cards are not?
Both.
Oh, okay.
So there are some of the alt arts only come in foil.
Got it.
And then there's randomly you can get either one of the alt arts as a foil or a common or uncommon as a foil.
Yep.
So there's common, uncommon, SSR, and secret rare. Using the Japanese rarity system. So SRs usually foil, SSRs always foil, secret always foil.
Got it. Okay. So it's kind of like Yu-Gi-Oh. It's like the more esoteric, the version
obscure,
of the card.
like here's a Starlight or top gold rare.
Yeah, there's a ghost foil, what have you.
Yeah.
The Pokemon company was doing inverted stuff where like the art was foil, but the border wasn't. Like the
reverse e-reader sets and stuff. Yeah, those were great.
So I was just curious about that because I know one of the things that we're not going to talk about the Dragon Ball game that came prior to the one that came out, but people like were cracking packs, and I remember they were looking for sensu beans because at that point in time you needed to run sensu beans.
Yep.
But the people that were cracking packs just sold everything back that wasn't foil because they only wanted to play foils. So they only wanted foil sensu beans. And that tells me everything I need to know right there because that card's a common.
Yeah.
So that means anything can be a foil. So that answers that question. So next up to discuss is, as far as I knew up until this conversation, like the newest game on the block, Star Wars Unlimited, which is between the Decipher era and now, I think, not the first Star Wars card game to come out. I think there was one in the middle.
There's one in the middle, but this is good.
Yeah. So, and I know nothing about this game, but I know the people that like the Decipher game really like this one. There's a little bit of a nostalgia rub where people are now like, wait a minute, the Decipher game is still stupid cheap to buy sealed of. Like, why don't we just also play that Star Wars
Decipher,
card game too? Yeah, like, okay. So this is just kind of creating this weird cascading nostalgia buy where people are like, I want to play all the Star Wars card games because this one's so good. It washes the taste out of the... What was the Decipher game?
It makes Young Jedi not so bad.
Yeah. And I know nothing about this game. I don't know. I think... Is it all art from the movies and like the games and stuff? It's all canon art? Like...
So... This was the thing that really caught us by surprise when, we saw cards and everything. It's all original art.
Okay, the little standee that's on one of the counters is like 18 inches tall, and it looks like 1970s illustrated Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, like in that A-frame stance, like legs spread apart with the lightsaber up above his head.
Yeah, so that is the Luke Skywalker art, but that is... It's done in that style to look vintagey, to speak to nostalgia, cute. But it hasn't. The one demographic missing from this game is the collectors, which all of us expected to see because it's Star Wars. As popular as Mandalorian is, the now new current expanded universe, I don't know, the old one was better. But the thing that's been really nice about this is... it still sells incredibly well, despite the fact that a card you need for 60% of the decks is $100. And you need 3 of them.
I mean, look, Jace the Mind Sculptor, better than all, cost how much? Like,
he was at $100 for a long time in Standard. So that's the thing that's happening. Now, what's kind of been a thorn in the side of a lot of stores, including ours, supply has been awful. They ran into the Lorcana problem.
Got it.
Where they did not anticipate it being as big as it has become. That they did not think it was going to be so popular, and they had already started producing set 2.
Who's making this?
This is Fantasy Flight.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. The guys that should know how this works. So their president recently came out and said, hey, we're getting a reprint of set 1 sometime before the holidays.
Oh, good. That's only 7 months.
Yeah. But set 2 won't have the same problems.
Okay.
So it's basically almost exactly what Lorcana did.
Yeah.
Where set 2 came out, there wasn't problems with getting it, and then after that they hit a wave of set 1, and that brought prices down further. Now, the thing that they did, which has been really good for LGSs, is they straight up said, hey, we're going to have our full organized play structure next year, but here's how you can qualify for nationals this year, which we're still having.
Okay, so there is an amount of OP in place. Okay, I don't think we discussed that when we were talking about it last week. Okay.
Yeah. And so there is an amount of OP,
yep.
but it's not a pro tour, which is what they've said they want with the organized play, which I think is phenomenal.
Sure. Yeah.
Now they also do the same thing as Konami and One Piece, where they send promo packs to your store that you can give out. And there is a set for participants. Everybody gets one. It's 3 cards with art that is only featured in the promo pack. There's no other way to get it.
Oh, that's cool.
And they do the same thing as Konami. Stores can't buy them back. They can come in foil or non. And your winner does get an extra promo pack. Now, the difference is it's not marked with anything. They just get an extra promo pack with a guaranteed foil.
Oh, okay. So you get 2 sets. The participant set.
You get the participant and the winner as well. Yeah.
Okay. You slice it.
And it's something that, the nice thing about SWU not having stock is that it actually forces the gameplay to stay in the LGS ecosystem, because I'm getting store credit back and spending it on cards right away.
Yeah.
If I want to build a deck, if I want to change my deck, if I want more of a staple, if I want to upgrade to foils. And then I'm selling cards back to the LGS so that I can get more credit for more singles.
Yep.
And it's been really nice to have that singles basically kept within the LGS ecosystem, because people don't really have a way to open. So if they want something, they've been checking at the few stores around St. Louis that have a good selection. And then most of the people I know have said, then I go to TCG Player, but I want to see if, XYZ stores has it first, because they're here and I want it tonight to play.
Got it. Makes sense. I didn't realize that was happening with Star Wars Unlimited. We don't really have a scene for it. There are more people into the TTRPGs for Star Wars. We still have like Infinite Hoth Flock set up, but I hadn't seen anybody ripping a box in a while on Monday nights. But I guess that's actually probably more impacted by supply issues than anything else, because people with the disposable income and the nostalgia bug are still going to buy that stuff.
Exactly.
And they'll crack it where and when they want. And OP is enough of a draw to keep people coming in.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that it actually just gameplay wise does some very interesting things.
Okay.
You and your opponent take your turns at the same time.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which is super nice. And then it's, all right, I'm done if you have more to do, and then proceed to the next phase and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Additionally, everything interacts with everything on the board proactively. There is very little reactive interaction. It's almost all proactive.
Okay.
Which I think for newer players is definitely, better.
Yeah.
And for people that haven't been really immersed in card games for very long, because frankly, someone asked, well, what's this like compared to Magic? And I was like, don't. It's nowhere near the same.
That's fair. Like trying to learn the Decipher card game and like the myriad of Lord of the Ring card games was so difficult, because they all wanted to also include the locations, which made it really difficult to interact with, because you're not using the locations like land. You are bolstering and causing incursion. Like you're fighting over locations as you flip them in your deck effectively. And that was a huge like confusion point of like, why are we bothering with this when we're just trying to play cards from our hands? Why did one of the starter decks come with a bunch of like nerds from the cantina, but they got to go to the Death Star? Like it just didn't make sense, like what they were trying to do. So I'm glad this game, is a little more straightforward. Hits the nostalgia bug, but not the collector bug yet, which I assume is probably going to come. I
feel like it is.
I've seen
they did announce Baby Yoda whatever he's called is in set 2.
Yep.
So I'm sure it's going to sell like crazy.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I've started seeing like a handful of main character slabs, but not a lot float through. So once it gets there, and then they're not doing a first edition for this stuff, right? It's just all
correct. It's just all one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And like, what is? I guess Swoo's probably of the list we're going down. One of the, comparatively speaking, the lesser selling games.
Yeah, it's when I checked yesterday, it's less than 10% of our revenue.
Yep.
But the average ticket is $50.
Jeez.
Wow. Scarcity has driven up prices of the singles to an absurd level. There's regular foils and then there's hyperspace foils. Hyperspace means full art. Those, even the commons are like $5 now.
Okay.
It's absolutely absurd. And admittedly, that is what most people that have been collecting the game have come in to collect, is hyperspace foils, but they're not Star Wars collectors. They're just card game collectors who know they want to max rarity everything. So,
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess for the Star Wars player, it'll even out in time once they find out if like they can foil everything, if they can't foil everything, what the cost is going to be, how do the foils hold up. I don't remember. The only card game Fantasy Flight made that I interacted with was L5R. And
man, that game was so good.
I don't remember that game having foils at all, so I don't know what the quality of a Fantasy Flight foil is going to be. So that could be...
They curl.
Ugh. Well,
yeah.
All right. Moving on, we have lumped together Lorcana and Dragon Ball Fusion. And before we dive in, Fusion is not the game that came out like 3 or 4 years ago, right?
No, Fusion just had its set 2 drop.
Okay. All right, so let's start with Lorcana here. So people are still coming in for Lorcana, Disney adults, kids.
Yeah.
Right.
I lumped these two together for a reason. These, for us and seemingly everyone I talk to, have turned into collector card games.
Okay.
Haven't fired a weekly in a while.
Yep.
For either of them, though they are collector card games for 2 different reasons. Dragon Ball Fusion has the most limited stock I have ever heard in my life of any game. We just got asked for set 5 numbers, and we just got set 2. And we were basically told we can't get sets 3 or 4 because it's so limited. So it's turned into a collector card game because that's where the value is.
Okay.
Because nobody can get it because you can't play.
Sure.
Lorcana has turned into a collector card game because they killed organized play.
Yeah, that's fair. So nobody's opening it, which means it's just hard to find
now,
singles.
we do get a decent amount of people opening this in store, but it is like you said, like the Disney adult with their kids, who it's a lot more like mom, pop, kid coming in, trying to do something together, learn a game they can play together.
Yeah.
Now, our online sales for both of these games, our average card price or our average number is about 5 cards each, and the average price is about $6.
Okay.
Per card.
Yeah.
So we're looking at like 15 to 25 somewhere in there.
Which kind of makes sense. It seems like all the Lorcana cards have a floor. It doesn't seem like there's like a lot of bulk floating around per se.
Well, and the nice thing is, the person that collects Bell is going to collect every Bell from every set. The person that collects Mickey is every Mickey on down the line. So it is kind of reliable. Now, the thing that makes this kind of sticky for LGSs is singles, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is that with Lorcana, you can sell basically anything.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what it is, it'll sell. Not the case with Dragon Ball, because most of the people that are playing it, because it is a Bandai game, it is mechanically almost identical to One Piece.
Oh.
It also has all of the alt arts, just like One Piece.
Yep.
Guess what people are collecting? All of the alt arts, because they're not playing the game. They just want their cool-looking Vegetas, Cells, Friezas, and Gokus, so that they can put them in slabs and display them somewhere. Mm-hmm. And that has caused the price of those cards to be absurd. There is an alt art in the first set of Dragon Ball that is $1,000. It's Goku. They call it a ghost rare because it's a silver background with lines on it. That's it.
Cool.
But because you can't find any and because nobody's playing, those are the only things that are worth any money, are the stuff that's ultra collectible that people really want.
Yep.
So these kind of fall into the same category of being collector games, just for wildly different reasons.
Yeah.
And of the two, I'm more comfortable with Lorcana in my store.
Okay.
Because I know Mom, Dad, Timmy, whatever.
Yeah,
they're gonna come. They're there.
Yep, there are more people that'll come in for Disney than will come in for Dragon Ball. And I asked about the physical marketing for One Piece. Dragon Ball physical marketing isn't hard to make up. If you need it, you can find that stuff. But it's very easy to find like Disney odds and ends to just buy, even at party stores, to put in your windows. And just,
and then, is there Disney stuff in here? Yeah, exactly. We have the card game.
Lorcana, Soulsy, or whatever. Yeah, it's super easy to kind of demonstrate that. So we have Lorcana, we have Dragon Ball Fusion. The Dragon Ball game that came out prior to Fusion, do you guys deal with that one at all? I forgot the name of it. The one that's based on Super, or started to be based on Super and then just went way off the fucking rails.
We deal with that, and the interesting thing is that the cards look almost identical to the new Dragon Ball game, but they are not compatible with one another.
Okay. I was worried that was going to be the case, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it was Dragon World Masters was what it ended up being called.
Okay. And then the last one on the list, probably aside from Lorcana, the most popular game on the list, and that is Pokemon.
I've screamed this to the rooftops, guys. You need to carry Pokemon. It sells itself. Kids love it. Mm-hmm. We have kind of an interesting setup. So we're in a business district where we're asked not to compete with other places. So one store moved in, and they have it's a children's store. So they wanted to do Pokemon organized play. Partnered with them because we didn't do it. But we said, hey, you want product? We've got product. We've got a distribution channel, whatever.
Yep.
So we don't run the organized play, but we do run a trade day for it. So what we actually have is they will come over and they will do learn to plays in the store for it while people are sitting there trading to create a environment where children can come and play the game. And it's been one of the best things because those kids literally spend $20 to $40 every single one every Sunday.
Yeah.
If not more. It's a game that I will say some local stores that used to be dedicated entirely to Pokemon did get into other verticals because the metagame got really, really bad for about a year and a half, like I talked about. So you do have to be mindful of that sometimes, but it is the affordable $4 a pack, $6, $7 a pack for some of the more desirable stuff that you can sell all day long to a kid, to a teenager, to a 20-something who is chasing the new alt art Charizard because he wants a PSA 10. It is the most important game that I think an LGS can be involved in because no matter what, there are children near you. There is some grade school you can work with, some youth group or church you can work with to try to drum up interest in the game to make it profitable for you. And they do not care about the economy. They don't care about interest rates, foreclosure rates, anything. They're going to spend their $20 to $40 every week no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot stress enough. Every LGS needs to carry it because it doesn't just sell in the LGS. It sells like crazy online.
Yep.
It sells like crazy at shows like you touched on. And it's not just anime shows. It's gaming shows. It's even like PAX East. It sells there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's everywhere.
Pokemon and Lorcana definitely share the similar thread of people will collect every art of their favorite character.
Yep.
And I've talked about this before. When you go to an anime show and you have Pokemon singles in your case, people will ask you what versions of X Pokemon you have because they'll just buy it.
Yep.
So like Lorcana into the future, when you have the opportunity to bring in stock for a game that's been running this long, especially once you get to that generational mark where parents can come in with their old cards, sell them so that their kids can buy new cards.
Yep.
Now you can have those older cards in your case that the person who's collecting Aerodactyls might not have had the opportunity to buy the fossil Aerodactyl.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Johnny, who has a kid who's 8, sold his fossil collection. And now Timmy, who loves Aerodactyl because why not? Scraw sees the fossil one in the case.
Yeah.
And because a majority of the cards are actually pretty bad, it's reasonably priced for that fossil Aerodactyl from like 2000. Like, and so there's this kind of weird, I don't want to use that word in a negative sense here. There's this weird ecosystem that no other game really has yet, because Lorcana has the opportunity to get there if it has the lifespan, where people will just always look for the art, the character that they don't have. They keep upcycling Bill and Professor Oak. Those were in base set that WotC made. They might do different things, but the art is still virtually the same, and people buy the crap out of those. Just because they like the art for those characters. They grew up with those characters in red, blue, green, and yellow, and they just want to engage with them again. Sure, why not? You don't even have to worry about the promos from back in the day that have eventually been reprinted, like Surfing Pikachu and Flying Pikachu. The E3 Pikachu, I don't think's been reprinted. Like that one's got some provenance to it for a price. But like, people just collect anything and everything for this game. So if you have the opportunity to open up the space to foster an environment to like create that culture, it's just going to do dividends for you. It's amazing and outstanding. And you're not the only LGS that I've heard that does this, that has dedicated Pokemon nights that effectively kind of age brackets it as well. Because you want the kids to come in, you want them to engage with each other, you want them to feel safe, and it's also the opportunity for the parents to kind of hang out, engage with their kids. Maybe they'll play like games with their kids at the store, or just hang out with other parents and like jam against them. We talked last week in OP how there's still a junior and a senior circuit, so the parents can jam while the kids are jamming. Like it's this kind of two-way street, and you just leave another day for the people in the middle, your teens and your young adults who are jamming Pokemon that would be in the senior division but don't have kids. They can get their own day to do this kind of stuff too. It's just, I want to say it's like printing money, but it's not even that. It's just like money machine go burr. Like it is. It's ridiculous how good Pokemon can be for your store as long as you treat it properly. And like, oh, so easy. Anything else though, before we cut out? I mean, or over to picks rather. Like, we didn't really touch on Digimon, but that kind of seems to be waning. It's like the second or third time they brought that game back. It's kind of like
it went the way of many Bandai Namco games, with One Piece being the only exception so far, and that it didn't it died after 2 years. Bandai has a history of supporting games for 2 to 3 years and then leaving them.
No, actually, before we cut over to picks, Flesh and Blood. Do you have any data points for that before we?
So Flesh and Blood is an interesting one. My understanding is it has effectively been monopolized from everyone I've talked to like 3 stores in the country. All the singles come from there. Most of the focus is on the Pro Tour, which is still very active and still has a lot of players. It's just not something that St. Louis has anywhere. I know there's Magnolia has quite a bit of it. Whatever's left of Channel has some of it, and Star City obviously has taken over quite a bit as well.
I think we've got a ton of it up here as well. It's not Monday nights shouldn't be the only night. There are a lot of groups that are playing here as well, but it's probably also because we're close to the majority of events that Star City's running. So they come in, they have their tournament, and effectively just practice for Star Cities, because I don't know where else
exactly.
Playing, so I wouldn't be surprised. All right, we're ready to cut over to picks?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, I'm going to go first this week because my card is gross.
And I went first last week.
All right, that's a better point. This week I'm going to talk about Flesh Duplicate, a card whose name I don't want to say too much. So,
what's it called?
Flesh Duplicate is a clone from the Doctor Who set. It's double blue for a shape-shifting rebel, 0/0 like all other clones. You may have Flesh Duplicate enter the battlefield as a copy of any other creature on the battlefield, except it has Vanishing 3, and if that creature doesn't have Vanishing. That's it. So 2 mana clone that is just here and gone over a number of turns. And the other unique thing about it is that this is a clone that isn't limited to just your own creatures like some of them are. Usually the 4 mana clones are pretty wide open. The lesser ones can be a little more restrictive. Now, when I was taking my notes, CK was buying 46 at $6, and they had none in stock at 10. They're now buying 42 at $6, which is great. A 10% reduction in stock with the price staying stable, exactly where we want to be. The open market, however, we're seeing a little bit of a dip. There were 67 listings. Market was $9.30. There are now 72 listings, so an increase in about 10%. And the market is now $9.19, which is kind of what we're seeing, like new people entering the space, so the price is dropping. Basically as expected. And then day of, I added this card on April 1st, no fooling. CK was buying 56 at $4.80, so they're now buying, less at more. They did have 6 on sale for $8, so they have a problem keeping them in stock despite buying them for more. And there were 84 listings on TCG Player for $6.97, effectively $7. So we're seeing a reduction in market and an increase in price, which is fantastic. Overall, when we look at this in Commander, this is one of the cheapest bilateral clones within the format, and it's basically just a value card. We're jumping on the value train here. Like, that's it. This is a pretty flexible, cheap clone effect. Flesh Duplicate allows you to clone any creature on the board for the low cost of just 2 blue mana. The downsides are that this is a fleeting effect due to the vanishing counters, like I mentioned, 3 of them, and that this doesn't remove the legendary super type like Spark Double does. So while we can jump on the value train pretty early and often, we're only on it for a few stops, sometimes barely one if we're copying a legendary creature. And when it comes to Commander writ large, we do see this in a lot of combo decks that either involve a Commander or Companion, so something like Gyruda or Atraxa Grand Unifier. This is the clearest and easiest look when you take a look at this on EDHREC. After that, it just kind of turns into this really cool soup where we see Flesh Duplicate and Phantasmal Image and then a few of the other lesser clones making it into a lot of decks. Not necessarily functioning by copying key cards, but making them more hardy. So something like copying a Grand Abolisher, an Opposition Agent, Orcish Bowmasters, even something all the way down to like a Seedborn Muse or a Bloom Tender can really help propel decks forward through the game. And so that's kind of where we're actually seeing a lot of these more, what's the best word here? These like more limited clone effects. There's an obvious draw to clone effects by Commander players, seemingly up and down the casual echelon, and their impact on Commander just seems to be barely outside the purview of most players, there in the sentence being clones. Not a lot of content creators seem to kind of jump on the clone train, and not a lot of players want to take that ride either. But the more clone effects we do get, the more impactful they become, as WotC is effectively forced to iterate on what a clone is. The clone army, so to speak, helps kind of patch the gap in a lot of decks plans by duplicating or hardening, as mentioned before, various elements needed to derive success. And instead of throwing random chaff or similar enough cards at the problem, being able to do this a lot of times can actually be a savings when looking at the mana value of the cards. And it could be an important iteration for the format when people realize they don't just have to find the next best thing, they can just play a clone instead. You land the thing, then you clone the thing. You have built-in redundancy to that thing or any other thing that could come otherwise, and you also might be actually saving on mana because the next best version of that thing costs more than the clone itself. Now, timeline overall, there was one anomalous day where almost 30 near mint copies sold. This does sell about 10 copies a day. And when I was taking a look at this, I was like, there's no way this card stays $9 forever. There couldn't possibly be somebody like the Gaming Co. out here. And lo and behold, the Gaming Co. is anchoring the price at $9.26 with 433 copies. And once that's gone, this becomes a $10 card really quickly. Then within the next 100 or so after that, this becomes a $12 card. So we're looking at about 60 days to really see profit on TCG Player. Buy list growth overall is there, but it's reliably slow. So I wouldn't expect to be able to turn this around to buy lists for just about as long as TCG Player. But I think TCG Player is going to be the easier and faster out overall. Reprint equity. The name and the vanishing keyword make this a bit of an odd look for anything that isn't a Commander product, but even then, I wouldn't expect it to be in a set or deck that didn't really lean into the vanishing keyword, either by having multiple cards with vanishing or proliferation, so you can add more vanishing counters to it so it sticks around longer. So basically, the deck that we saw this printed in, I think, is the only way we're going to see this again in the future because of how weird this card is as a clone. And I think that just kind of makes it really hardy overall, really easy to play with, really easy to pick up. I don't actually own any of these at the moment. I've actually really been hemming and hawing on buying this for a really long time. And that is actually a problem I need to rectify because this is a card I've been watching since before I put this on my list in April. It just sat flat for a while. I didn't quite get it. I know this doesn't remove the legendary super type, which is actually really important for the Gyruda deck. But at the end of the day, you don't need that to be there, and I think people are actually realizing that, and that's why it's kind of picking up speed now. So we're late to the game. I am late to the game, but I think from here on out we're going to be really good buying into this card because of how quickly it's going to go from 9 to 12, and that's Flesh Duplicate.
I love this card because your very first point, it's not just your stuff, it can be anything. I think that's incredibly important. I also love 2 mana. Obviously, you're probably not casting it on turn 2.
No.
But the fact that it opens you up for so many plays later down the line, and I think that this is something that could even potentially see play in CEDH lists down the line, where it does have modality to it because of its cost, because you can simply just wait and you're good.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, the other clone that costs 2, I didn't mention, it is Phantasmal Image, and that is a bilateral clone again, but the problem is it is a Phantasmal card, so it has that clause on it of when somebody basically looks at it funny, it disappears. So in a similar vein, this card does disappear as well. It just takes a little while to get there. So that's kind of the model that we're going to see, I assume, with 2 mana clones, is WotC trying to find a way to make them useful, but also make them fleeting.
Yeah.
So.
And vanishing is a good way to do that because, I mean, realistically, how often does your clone stick around?
Yeah.
Or are you just cloning for a turn or 2 to get the effect?
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
It just has to be there for a turn.
Yep. When you're doing this with the Gyruda deck, the ask is have as many even mana value clones as possible in the list. It doesn't matter if they last.
Yeah.
And when you're playing Atraxa and you just want to trigger that ETB again, the cheaper the clone, the better it is so that you can play, like you were getting at, more of those cards after the clone. Just sack.
Yep.
It's fine. Or you could sack the Atraxa and recast the Atraxa later. And this kind of goes both ways in that regard. When you don't remove the legendary keyword, you can re-trigger the commander, re-trigger the combo piece if it is your commander or what have you. Like, there's a lot of weird play to this card, and like I said, I think the problem is that clones overall are just not something a lot of commander players are really interested in doing. They want to find the next thing that is as close enough to the original as possible, because what happens if they go to clone the original and it's just not there? Like, whatever, you deal with it, but your card.
I, on the other hand, have a sell call. So as I've touched on recently, and as we've said throughout the history of the podcast, it has seemed like the window for selling or buying into EDH stuff, a buy call for a future sell call.
Yep.
The window for buying in on that stuff is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Panharmonicon, Paradox Engine were the 2 that I really remember being like, we've got about 3 to 4 months before these cards take off. And it was about 3 to 4 months before they took off. And they did not come back until Paradox Engine, unfortunately, got the ban. People just need to learn how to interact with the stack. All of that is to say, I am picking the medallions from Modern Horizons 3. I've specifically cited the Tempest one because it's the unique art. Yep. It has the longest price history. And Jet Medallion's really just kind of innocuous. It's not Ruby Medallion that sees play in Legacy. It's not Sapphire Medallion that sees play ubiquitously in EDH. Just kind of a middle of the ground. He's just there hanging out.
Yeah.
So this card has already started to drop after the leaks from MH3. The Tempest one is down to like $16, $17 right now. The Modern Horizons 3 versions on the low end are sitting around 15. Now, this is a card that I think with Modern Horizons 3 coming out, obviously they've made a huge effort to engage with Commander players. We have Commander product because Commander decks need to happen for a deck that is realistic, or for a set that is realistically made for Modern and Commander. Doesn't matter.
Yep.
They've trying to get them to engage with this. We have these cards reprinted in it. Clearly, they want EDH players to buy it. So I am calling this out as a keep your eye on it for a little bit, because $15 is way too affordable for a card like this. This is something that, based on other recent EDH specs, heroic interventions, last printing, stuff like that, we know within 3 months is going to recover, especially for the more desirable ones, your Ruby medallions, your Sapphire medallions. Those ones are going to recover quickly.
Yep.
Keep an eye out, because when this set comes out, when this gets opened, there's going to be two kinds of people that are going to engage with it. There's going to be Modern players and like grinders who want to play the limited format. You know what they're going to do with your medallions? They're going to get rid of them as quick as they can. And then there's going to be the Commander players that are just going to buy the product to hope they hit some stuff and then never engage with it again. Those players who are showing up for drafts or whatever, those are the ones you want to get with, because they're going to have the medallions that they simply do not need.
Yeah.
Because outside of maybe Storm making a comeback, but I don't think a 2-mana rock doing that is really what's going to help Storm come back in Modern. The deck is just too slow. But I would expect within the first 2 to 3 months after the set releases, we start to see a recovery on it. And in the meantime, I'm going to get as many as 10 of any of these medallions, because I know every single one of them I pick up is going to sell.
Yep, it's going to just
they will
turn immediately.
Absolutely sell.
Yeah.
Flip them out into the open market, maybe a little bit before they hit buy lists. That's fine, unless you do go the Tempest route. Then your buy list should recover a little bit more quickly, because these aren't coming out anymore. It's just people that are old border snobs, which is correct. But I wanted to call it out because as we've seen this timeline for EDH stuff shorten and shorten and shorten, it's more and more important that we get ahead of this stuff, because come release day, it may already be too late.
Yeah.
We may hit the bottom on release day, and that's it. So just have that in mind, bear in mind, try to pick it up where you can. People are going to be willing to offload them right now for less because, I guess it is getting reprinted in a month. Fine. Take it wherever you can get it. This one should be pretty close to a sure thing. Yep.
I like the medallions overall as a look. I think understanding the tier lists to the medallions is really important, like you were talking about, where the Izzet medallions are basically just a no-go. People are going to hold on to them. Ruby Storm is a thing in Legacy. People really like that deck. I don't think either of them are going to make it into Modern in a combo deck, because we have had Baral and Goblin Electromancer for how long, and adding rocks 9 through 12 aren't going to fix anything.
No.
So at the end of the day, these are going to go basically to Commander players. And I think even in the lower echelons, understanding who needs what is also really important. I like your look at Jet Medallion. I think that's a really good look. There are anywhere a mono black or black X deck can save mana is going to be fantastic.
Yep.
And I think also to pair with that, anywhere the mono white deck can save mana is also going to be fantastic. So also, I think that's another pretty good look overall, especially because most mono white decks are angel decks, and those can cost a lot of mana at the end of the day. So any reduction you get, the better. Green sits kind of squarely in the middle, because eventually you're just going to ramp past the need for the medallion, but the medallion is there to help make sure that your engine starts going as early as possible. It is a redundancy effect that just allows you to ramp a lot easier and a lot faster, and then it becomes a vestigial piece of the plan. So I think the call out that you made of understanding the echelons is really important. I like the Tempest lookout for a number of reasons. When they popped around Modern Horizons 2, we had a fun conversation with the guys over at MTG Stocks, because some of the medallions were being bought out and reasons were cited. I think it was just speculation or something or other. I called out the trend that we were seeing, which is to think a lot of them with photos were being sold as if people were looking for the Charlie Brown stamp, which is something that only happens on the Tempest ones. So that also makes them a little more of a unique look, because not everybody who buys the medallions knows about the Charlie Brown stamps, cares about the Charlie Brown stamps. wants to look for the Charlie Brown stamps. So yeah, there is the opportunity to kind of comb through stock and find the Charlie Brown stamp stuff if you really want to be a snob about your Tempest medallions. And it's also I think you mentioned this as well, the unique art. For Jet Medallion, at least, this art I noticed was on the list, and that's it. After that, it's the same piece of art that they've been using since Commander 2014, and I assume the rest of the medallions are the same way, with or without the list printing. So not only do you get the old border, you get the old look that kind of is reminiscent of that era where like charcoal diamond looks very much the same. It has that same kind of feel. It just feels like this middle era of that of like the first era of the game. And for me, like this is the clear winner overall in terms of look. Otherwise, I think the medallion cycle is just a great option overall as an LGS, as a backpacker, as somebody who's just looking to make flips. The opportunity to buy these at the absolute lowest and push them out in a couple of weeks when there's definitely profit to be made is a fantastic look, and we'll be sure to tell you when that is with a call out.
Yep.
So, yay medallions. Anything else?
Jewels.
Yeah, right. Anything else for this week before we cut out?
Nope.
Do you have any shows coming up? We haven't talked about that in a while.
I don't think I do gaming wise.
Okay.
Star City's been pretty limited.
Yeah, for me, I think I'm going to be at Baltimore, and that's about it. But I'm going to be there in player capacity. So
fair, yeah.
All right. So then to close it out for this week, at MtG Cabal on Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and YouTube. I am at Halt. I am Reptar. You are
at Damon _Thurston.
We'll see you next week.